do you want me to?
You can start. I think since you're the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us for this presentation about EdMaps. I just wanted to give folks a little background before we get started on the presentation, which Stacy will be the primary presenter. A couple years ago, a group of us got together to look at the available databases out there and talk to other states about what databases they were using. And some of you may have seen a survey that we put out. And through some meetings and analysis, we decided to go with EdMaps. And that makes a lot of sense, in particular because of the history with iPain, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, which has been around working in New England for over 10 years. So since that time, we've kind of folded our little database working group into the Massachusetts Invasive Plant Advisory Group, and wanted to do some more promotion to get folks to use the database in Massachusetts. And so as we talk in the presentation, I'll mention a couple things that this group has been doing to set up verification and promote the database. So we've been cooperating with iPain, which is still sort of based out of the University of Connecticut, but is the node for EdMaps in New England, to put together this presentation. And because I can't see who's on, we were advertising the presentation in Massachusetts mainly, but I know that the announcements went out well beyond that because we had enough space on this webinar to include a lot of people, so we could have people from Connecticut and Vermont, New Hampshire, and maybe even Maine on here as well. So welcome to you all, and if you have questions, feel free to use the chat box during the presentation, or you can contact iPain at the email. There'll be an email at the end, or I think my own email is on there as well. We helped to set up a contact email for EdMaps in Massachusetts, but I've been having some problems doing that, so there'll be more information sent out later. So why don't you go ahead, Stacy?
Okay, thanks, Karen. So my name is Stacy Young, and I am kind of running the back end of iPain, and I'm just going to talk a little bit today about how to easily enter invasive species data into iPain through EdMaps for New England, and specifically, yeah. So I just wanted to first give a brief history of iPain. iPain was launched, the Invasive Plant Atlas of New England, I should clarify, was launched with a large grant from the USDA in 2001, and I actually just began my graduate work at UConn then, so I was on the iPain grant from the very beginning, and then I've come back here more recently. And it was a multidisciplinary project. The idea was to bring together researchers, educators, and outreach to get more information about where invasive species were in New England. And over these past 12 years, iPain has trained over 800 volunteers for invasive species reporting and collected over 12,000 individual species observations, which is really a pretty impressive count. In 2011, the iPain website was moved to EdMaps so that the data could be served from there and also archived in the long term. iPain is funded from outside sources, so that way if the funding ever ran out, the data would always be in a place. So this has been a really good partnership, and it's now, as Karen had said, become the focal area for the Northeast as part of a larger national network. I don't know, Karen, if you want to talk about this part.
Yeah. So that, as this is sort of just a repeat of what I said earlier, that we've the Massachusetts Invasive Plant Group, which is a group of folks from a variety of agencies and nonprofit organizations and other groups in Massachusetts. So we have a subcommittee of MyPeg now that is going to work on just several issues related to promoting and setting up verification for EdMaps in Massachusetts.
Okay.
So that's that's our intent going forward into the future as well.
So just to give an idea of like what this national network looks like, you can see here, this is from the EdMap site. So now iPain is not only just New England, but a part of this larger national network. So that's a really good opportunity to be kind of interlocked with the rest of the country and kind of see where invasive species are on a larger scale. And iPain, the idea of it was to use citizen scientists, and that was, iPain actually started doing that well before that kind of phrase became more common. And it's not just citizens in terms of just regular people, but land managers, academics, government officials, NGOs can all kind of work together to get data. And there have been many other successful programs, such as the Christmas bird count and the breeding bird survey, and Project Budburst, which is a phenology citizen scientist program. And it really gives us more eyes on the ground so that you can gather a huge amount of data. So those 12,000 data points, there's no way that any one entity could have gathered that much data. But why enter data at all? Well, the first is that so that we can continue to get distribution data. Invasive plants are always on the move, and there's always new invaders. So we still want data to be entered into iPain. And more importantly, we really want to catch these early detection species, such as mile-a-minute vine that's here. And with more people looking, it's going to be a higher chance that these plants are caught. Now, that's not to say that we don't want information about more common invasive species, such as bittersweet or Japanese barberry, because those plants are important still. We want to get a better picture of where they are in New England. There's gaps still in the data, and especially in natural areas where a small infestation could still be controlled. So this is all information that's important. So some of you might be familiar with the original iPain website, and basically the webinar was kind of billed as iPain 2.0. So I want to kind of talk about the improvements and upgrades that have come to iPain because of this partnership now with EdMaps. The first is that anyone can enter data into EdMaps even without the iPain training. So previously you had to go through a pretty rigorous training program, and now it's anyone can sign up to enter data into EdMaps. And you can do it with your mobile phone. You don't need to use a map and GPS, although you can still do this if you're more comfortable with that, or the GPS can give you more accurate location. But it's great because you can use your mobile phone on the go anywhere. And not as detailed of data are required. Before, iPain had a pretty rigorous amount of data that had to be gathered from field sites, and now that's not necessarily required, although we do encourage as much information as possible. And obviously there's pluses and minuses with that. With anyone entering data without training, you might have more mistakes, but as Karen's going to go through, we have a verification process for this. And I think a lot of us would rather have a mistake than miss a new invasive species. And then without as detailed data, sometimes it's a little harder for academic type people to do modeling, and sometimes it's harder for managers to kind of get the bigger scope of what's going on there. But again, through EdMaps and being able to contact you, we'll be able to get the information that we need. So today I really wanted just to focus on how do we use EdMaps to enter data into iPain. And there's really two main corridors. The first is through the iPain or EdMaps website. I'm going to kind of go through the presentation as if you're going through iPain, but it's the same as if you start on EdMaps, and we'll see screenshots of both so you'll know where to go. Or you can download the mobile app for your iPhone or Android for both iPain, and then Karen too wanted to talk about the Outsmart Invasive Species app. And you can do that at edmaps.org, the App Store, Google Play, or right from your iPhone. Like I downloaded it just by going to the App Store on my iPhone. So, and they're all free, so that's fantastic and easy to use. So
right, Outsmart is
yeah, go ahead.
the university connected to the University of Massachusetts and the Massachusetts State Department of Conservation and Recreation, and I think they have a new version about to come out if it hasn't already, and I think it's available just at the App Store right now, but you can also search on them and see what comes up at their website.
Yeah, that's a great way to enter data about invasive insects and those types of things too, so it's awesome.
Yeah, Outsmart has a smaller subset of invasive plants right now, but it also has a few invasive insects, and it has some good video training guides on certain species as well.
Yeah, and the good thing, it all goes to the same place. So
right.
So for the first part, I'm just going to talk about how to enter data through, like if you were sitting at your computer. So if you go to ipain.org, this is the homepage, and actually currently myself and some undergraduates are combing through the iPain website to pick up, and try to clean up any sort of broken links and things like that. We're trying to kind of update it a little bit, but it's working fantastically. So all you do is click on Report a Sighting, and then here it brings you to where you can register into EdMaps. So if you aren't registered, it's very, very, very easy. You just click on Register Now, and you're brought to this page, and you only have 5 required fields to register for EdMaps. And it does ask for contact information, but that's only used for us to get in contact with someone if we need to follow up on a sighting. It's never used for anything else, so it's a pretty good situation there. So you fill in your information, and then you log in. So this is me logging in here. And when you're going to iPain, you can now report sightings to any state. So we'll just kind of walk through a brief example. So if we were in Massachusetts, you would click on Massachusetts, pretty simple. And right there in red, you type in your HES that you have. So the neat thing is once you start to type in the box, it does a pull-down list. So you can, once you start typing in Oriental bittersweet or Celastrus orbiculatus, you can easily just select it. And another nice feature is you can see it in small, but I kind of bold being a little bigger, is that you can also put in something as unknown or unlisted. So if you see something out in the field that you know is just strange and you don't know what it is, you can enter that data too. A lot of times those might be new invasives or something, that we need to follow up on. So once you select your species, you'll notice there's a little thumbnail picture of it in the upper right corner. And here, so basically this is all one page, and I have screenshots kind of as you scroll down the page. So we're going to be just scrolling down this report a sighting page. So you just use a little calendar button to do your observation date. And then you'll see that there's a slew of pull-down menus, but the pull-down menus are great because it makes data entry really fast. So one thing I've been asked a couple times in these webinars I've been doing recently is whether or not you should enter a separate point for each plant. And what we've been saying is if you're in the middle of one infestation, to kind of get a centroid and then use these infested area and gross area to kind of give us a sense of how big the infestation is. So infested areas, how much actual area the invasive is covering if they were kind of all together. And then the gross area is the larger area of how much the infestation is. And the nice thing about EdMaps is if you're ever confused about a term, there's these nice little question marks that you can mouse over and get more information. So for instance, if you didn't know what they meant by percent cover, if you mouse over it, it tells you right there what it is. So it's a really helpful little guide right there. And you can fill in as much of these as you have information for. We're encouraging people to give us more information, but if you don't know some of the things, it's fine, as long as those required fields are filled in, which are observation date, pest, and then location as we go down a little further. And you'll notice they have nice little check boxes for plant description and things like that. So as we go down, and you can select percent cover, and then as you go down the page a little bit, there's more information for aquatic plants, because obviously for aquatics there's a little different types of things you might want to know about them. So again, easy pull-down menus for aquatic species, so that we can understand what type of water it is, how deep, what we're talking about here, and again, how much of the water is covered by vegetation. The next required field is filling in a location. So they have pull-down menus here. It's already going to be filled in for Massachusetts if you selected Massachusetts, obviously, as your state that you're reporting a species from. And you can use the series of pull-down menus again to select what county you're in, and then as you select county, then the list of appropriate towns will be in the next pull-down menu. The nice thing is here, so you can fill in your latitude and longitude using from your GPS unit, and it's in decimal degrees. And on the right side, on the bottom, you notice there's an easy conversion tools right there for you. So if you have from a map or UTMs or whatever, you can easily convert into decimal degrees. So that way we don't have a problem. And then another way you can do it is you can zoom in on this nice Google map here and actually place that pointer exactly where you are. So you can switch from map to satellite and help pinpoint your location. Also, obviously, with private land, you need permission to be on the private land, but you can actually, if you do have permission, the person wants that information to remain private, you can actually click the little private checkbox there. So that's a nice feature. And you can also put in a more detailed location description of where of what you're seeing at the place where this invasive species is. So this location panel here is rather important. Keep forgetting my arrows here. Okay. As you go a little further down, now this is where you would upload images from your camera. And it says here, just for us to verify and for the verifiers that Karen has lined up to verify, they suggest taking at least 2 pictures, a close-up of the species and one of the site. And I have examples of kind of what good pictures for that would be. A close-up, here's garlic mustard here. This would be a really nice close-up. It shows the leaves, it shows the flowers. It's something that we could easily identify the species from. But then a good landscape shot here is showing how the infestation of garlic mustard is actually rather extensive. So this is a really nice site shot showing us kind of what we're talking about as far as infestation. You'll also notice there's captions here, so you can give us a nice description of what you're seeing so we know what that picture is representing. And then finally at the bottom there's a spot just for any additional comments, a place if you're if you're entering data for someone else, so that way you can put your name if you weren't the one that actually did it. And then if there's a voucher anywhere for a barium, so if you found some really neat invasive plant and took a nice barium assessment, and that way we know where it is in case we need to do some further follow-up there. Then you simply click report and it goes into the EdMap system, and at the end of after I go through the apps, I'll show you how you can go into EdMaps and actually edit your records. So it's a really nice feature as well. Okay, so now we'll move on to how to use the mobile app. So to use the mobile app, you go to www.edmaps.org, and it brings you to the EdMaps homepage. So this is what you see when you first get there, and as you scroll down, just below here, I'll show you, there's a banner for the apps for your smartphone, and you just click on the banner, and it brings you here to the Bugwood Apps site, and then you just click on Our Applications tab. It brings you here, and as you have put a little orange arrow there to tell you to scroll down the page. And here is both Outsmart Invasives and iPain. So again, that's another way that you can get to the apps. So yeah. And here's the iPain app here. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through. This is an iPhone. The Android's fairly similar. I didn't have an Android phone to pull the same side-by-sides up, but it's pretty much the same process. So here's when you open up the iPain app on your phone. And this is the first screen that you'll see is this reported plant screen. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment, but I kind of have been suggesting just to get yourself logged in using your EdMaps username and password right away, just so you don't forget. So once you get here, you just click on this little ellipsis here for more, and it brings you to this next screen, and you just tap on Settings. And when you first log in, if you haven't logged in already, it has you as a test user. So all you need to do is just touch the log out part of that, and it brings you to the familiar EdMaps site. And there you would type in your username and password that you got when you registered online. And if you don't want to do the whole online thing, you can easily register with EdMaps right from your phone as well. Okay, so if you touch the little leaf on the bottom, you'll get brought back to this page that we had started at, and it's nice because you can look at plants both under scientific names and under common names. They list them in alphabetical order. You'll notice there's a lot more plants that are on the iPain official iPain list because it includes all plants that are in EdMaps, so which is a good thing, but they might not necessarily be invasive in New England. So you just have to kind of keep that in mind and just find the plant that you're looking for. Oops. So basically, if you touch the little blue arrow here, it'll pull up a nice little thumbnail picture of the species if you're interested in reporting Japanese barberry and want to know a little bit more about it. It gives you a nice description, nice little thumbnail picture. I know Chuck and crew are working on maybe bringing some more pictures into this, but it's a nice little field guide to have with you in the field. So say we're just going to go walk through example again, reporting, say, Japanese barberry. So basically now you just tap on Japanese barberry, the name, not the little circle, and it brings you to this observation page, and this is it. So this is like where all your information is going to go into your iPhone. So It's a little bit more truncated than the desktop version of EdMaps. But this is great if you're on the go and you see something, you pull over on the side of the road and you really want to get that observation in there, or if you're in the field with your phone and that's just an easier way to take data, it's right here. So basically you can tap on the little camera and take a nice picture. Right now you can only upload one picture, but I'll show you later on that you can go back in and add pictures once you get back from the field. It pulls your latitude and longitude up from your phone. The first time you enter into iPaint app, it's going to ask you if it can use your location. So if you say yes, it'll use your phone as basically a little GPS unit. So this is an awesome feature that we have now to be able to do this. And you'll notice the latitude and longitude are there. And you'll notice it gives you an accuracy. So if you tap on the little map while you're out there, it's going to show you where you are. So where you are is that little blue dot with the circle around it. And this was me at UConn, and you can see that it doesn't have me in the building that I actually was in. It's a little off because of being inside. So the nice thing is here, using that little red pin, you can actually move the pin to exactly where you're located in the field, and it's a nice Google Earth picture, so you can zoom in and pinpoint yourself if it's not to the accuracy of your liking of where you were with this invasive plant. And then here you can again note the infested area. That way we get an idea if you're just seeing a single plant or if you're in a large swath of this invasive plant, so we can get an idea of what's happening. And then finally, there's a nice note space, and I would just, write us some notes, just some brief little bullets about what you're seeing out there, anything you think we should know, the extent, what type of habitat you might be in, where you are. All those things are useful for us to kind of understand what's happening out there. And then finally, you just tap on save, and it says, thank you, your observations in the queue. And this is a really nice feature of the app. So here on the bottom, you can see how many observations you have in your queue. And when you tap on it, it brings you to your queue. Now, if you're in a place that's not getting the best phone reception, it'll keep everything into your queue. And then when you get back into where you have Wi-Fi, you can easily upload a ton of stuff from your queue. You can do it in the field too, but that might be a good option if you have a ton of observations. So there's your observation. And we can upload it. So all you would do is tap upload and it will upload. If you make a mistake or want to get rid of something, you just simply tap on the edit button and there you can delete your observation. Okay. Oop, I lost. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now one other nice feature of the app is this mapping feature. So if you tap on maps, you can actually see which invasive plants have been reported from where you might be. So if you tap on maps, it'll bring up the plants, this time in scientific name, alphabetical order. And say if we want to see where Norway maple was in New England. So the way this works is it pulls the Google map up and it has kind of these big focal points. Those are not precise GPS. It's just kind of giving you an overall idea of where Norway maple is and how many observations have been reported into iPaint for that plant. So you can zoom in on that map, so say over here in Providence, and it brings you in a little closer. You can still see there's some little red pinpoints and then there's some kind of cloud points showing, again, there might be a concentration of observations. So if we zoom in a little further, say here on Warwick, it brings you some specific points. And if you tap on the point on your phone, you can pull up the exact record from EdMaps, tap on more information, and get all sorts of information about that specific sighting of an invasive plant. So that's really useful if you're in a place and you want to know, hey, has this invasive been recorded, or this plant has been observed around me before. So that's a nice feature to have on the go. And Karen, I'll hand it off for you here. So as the data comes into EdMaps, we have a verification system. iPaint sees all the entries as well, but Karen has a nice verification system set up that she'd like to talk about.
Right. So last fall, we did some recruiting for folks who would take on certain counties across Massachusetts. So we have probably 10 or 12 people, botanists, both, really good amateur botanists as well as professional botanists who have volunteered their time to verify the data that comes in, so that over time we can get a better quality of data. And so what's going to happen is when a record is input, it should come to that person or groups of people. In some cases, we have a couple people per county, and they will review the report, and either, if they can't figure out what it is, maybe ask you for more information. That's why the photos are crucial. There's a couple crucial pieces of data they have to have before they can verify it, or they themselves might ask for more help if they can't identify it. And we've got a couple people, Brian Connolly at the Mass Heritage Program, and Jennifer Foreman-Orth at the Mass Department of Ag, that will help with more difficult ones or new ones that people haven't seen before. So if they say okay, it will be verified and go into the system, and Chuck can maybe say what it would actually look like, because we are actually still we set this up in the late fall. It wasn't the growing season, so there have been some reports that have been verified, but not too many so far. So I would say we're still in the testing phase of this as we go into this field season. But just know that that is set up, and we'll work out any kinks or anything that appear as the growing season goes forward.
Great.
Okay, back to you, Stacy.
Okay. So I just wanted to also go through some other features of the EdMaps site, because they have some really great tools that I think everyone will find fairly useful. So one nice tool is the species information. So if you click on that, it brings you to where you can get information about specific species. And you just do it by growth habit. So again, because I like vines, we'll do Oriental Bittersweet. So if you click on vines, and then it'll bring up all the vines that are in EdMaps database. So not just ones in New England again, but all the ones that are there. And if you scroll down, you can't see it here, you can click on Oriental Bittersweet. And it brings up this nice little panel with all sorts of information, descriptive information. You can get to the wonderful pictures available through EdMaps through Bugwood, which have just fantastic pictures of all these plants. And if you scroll down, they have other links. They have a link back to iPain. They have a link to several other sites. And again, some more of these really nice images, some of which are actually from iPain. You can see the one by Les there on the bottom. You can also, from iPain.org, go into the iPain species and go through the catalog of species here. And then you'll be brought to these familiar thumbnails again. And you can, again, click on vines. And here, it's only now truncating the list to the in New England species. So here's, again, Celastris. And then this is just the top. There's a whole bunch below. I didn't want to do 200 screenshots. But as you scroll down, it gives a description. It has images. And it's a little bit more New England focused in terms of the description and things like that. And this is actually something that we're currently going through to fix some of the links on these pages. But the images are great, and it's just another way to get more information about the plants, maybe in a specific New England context, the history of how they came to New England, things like that. Another feature of EdMaps is these distribution maps. Now, this is a little different. It's similar to what you can do on your phone, but a little bit more powerful off the desktop version. So here's, once you click on distribution maps, it brings you here, and you can look at maps in a variety of ways. I'm not going to go through all the various options because it would take forever, but we'll just do a couple examples. So now if you wanted just to look at your state, so say you want to know all the invasive plants that have been found in Massachusetts, so you can, it brings you to a nice little map, and you click on Massachusetts, and it shows you 512 species that have been reported. Now, you have to remember, and they have a note right there at the very top telling you that these are plants that are exotic to the U.S., but they might not be a problem in Massachusetts. There might just be some weedy thing that you find, like, like a dandelion, something like that. So, but this is just to give you an idea of, overall in Massachusetts, what EdMaps plants have been found. You can, if you do it by county, it basically goes through the same type of process. Obviously, we don't have pythons in Massachusetts, so we don't have to worry about that. But you can also go through by growth habits. So again, we'll use Oriental Bittersweet as an example, and I find this to be a pretty useful tool. So once you click on vines, it brings up all the EdMaps vines again. And here you can click on Oriental Bittersweet, and you can see on the view there, it gives you how many sightings have been recorded for it, and then you can click on state, county, point, or list. So let's go through a state example. So if you click on state, it brings you to this nice Google map. So it shows you which states Oriental Bittersweet has been reported from overall. So it's a nice distribution map. And then this is an example from Connecticut from a previous presentation, but it'll be exactly the same for Massachusetts. So if we click on Connecticut, and then you can click on your specific county, so say Tolland County, it'll pull up all the records. You can scroll down the page of Oriental Bittersweet for Tolland County and give you the information about it. But the most interesting thing is here you can click on points on Google Maps here. And it brings you again to that familiar, kind of like it was on the app, Google Map with these kind of clouds of points here and there. So since I did some work in Yukon Forest, we'll go through that as an example. So if you click on that 17 there by Yukon Forest, oops, and pull up the Excel data, actually brings down everything that you're seeing. So you can get one huge Excel data sheet, and the nice thing about getting an Excel file is you, depending on what you want to use your data for, you can easily sort and truncate the list down to exactly what you want. So if you're just looking for slashers in a specific town or found in a specific date, things like that, you can easily do that and download this Excel file onto your computer. It doesn't take very long. It pulls it down really fast. You can also pull down in Google Maps or through Google Earth. And there's two ways to do that. One way is you can save the file as this KML file onto your desktop, and then you can upload that into Google Earth, basically. And I'm pretty sure that you can download Google Earth points into your GPS, and I know that there is some sort of interface between ArcGIS and Google Earth points, I believe. Okay, so another way that you can look at that, I'm sorry, let me just go back a second here. It's not going to let me go back. Okay, so yeah, you can either open it, save the file on your desktop, or you can just open it, and since I have Google Earth on my computer already, you can browse to the Google Earth program and just pull up the map. And there's all these pinpoints showing where it's been found. So this is pretty nice. You can zoom in, you can look at it from the Google Earth perspective, and then you can also, as I showed you, get those GPS points if you want to download them onto your GPS unit to go find them specifically. Also from the EdMaps, you can go to Tools and Training, and they have all sorts of great training materials, PowerPoints, all sorts of things to kind of increase your invasive species knowledge. On the bottom left, you can see they even have control resources, which are some great things there. Another thing that they have, if you have bulk data entry, so say if you have like a ton of points already sitting in Excel that need to be entered into EdMaps and you don't want to do it one by one, they have some nice forms here that you can use. They have a data entry template here in Excel that you can fill in your data into. And they also have a kind of instructions on how to do all those things. So yeah, it's a nice little way. So if you have a ton of points that you need to get to EdMaps, there's a way to do that not going through one by one, and you would basically get in touch with the EdMaps people to do that for you once you have them in Excel. Then finally, I think the neatest feature about being with EdMaps is this My EdMaps feature. So once you log into EdMaps on the desktop, it brings up your own personal EdMaps page here. And you can see that there's a whole bunch of things. It has your stats, so it shows you how many reports that you've done, how many species you've done, so that's kind of a neat thing. The Manage My Reports is great. So remember I had mentioned earlier that if you download something from your iPhone or upload something from your iPhone, out in the field, and then you want to add more pictures or add more information using those pull-down menus and things, you can go into your data here, and you click on Manage My Reports. And here, so I did kind of a test one just to kind of show you what it looks like. You go in, and you can easily view your report, edit it. if you are a land manager and you do control, you can actually visit that site again and do a revisit to show how the distribution has changed. Or if you make a mistake, you can simply delete it. So here is a good place that you can add more information later on if you just are on the go and really want to get something on your iPhone, but then you want to give us more information. You can easily do that here. So I think this is a really fantastic, flexible feature. And then another really great feature is the creating your own alerts. So what you can do is you can make a state, county, or species alert. So say if you're in Massachusetts and you want to know if a new invasive plant or animal has been entered into EdMaps, you can sign up to basically get an automatic email, and it'll tell you when there's a new species. And if you're pretty familiar with what's there already, you can just click on New Only. So it'll only give you an alert the first time it's found in a specific place. And you can see there, you can pull down your county. So if you live in Lexington County and you really want, or not Lexington, sorry, Middlesex County, and you want to know, hey, is there a new, mile a minute record? It'll email you to let you know. So that's a pretty neat feature right there. And then if there's a specific species that you're just interested in, say you're just really interested in mile a minute vine in general, you can select that species specifically, so you get records anytime it's entered into EdMaps. So that's kind of where I'm going to pause right now so we can take any questions from people. Contact, Karen or myself with your questions. Obviously, if it's kind of Massachusetts specific, Karen might be a person that you want to get in touch with, but I can definitely help as well from the iPain overall perspective.
Stacy, there's a question under the questions box. Can you see it, or?
Questions box. Let's see. In the chat box or in the?
There should be a questions box. Well, I'll read you the question. It says, how far in can you zoom to see the location of a population, or is there a way to see that a plant is located on a particular parcel of land, one landowner?
Yeah, you can zoom pretty far into because it uses the satellite images on Google Maps. You can zoom in pretty far and see some pretty detailed features. So you can see roads, you can see like vacant lots, things like that. So you're probably going to be pretty well able to kind of pinpoint things using that that Google mapping feature. So that's a really nice, to be tied into Google Maps is pretty powerful in terms of location of plants.
But because the property ownership is not tied to that, then you can't
right.
go in and see that this is a specific landowner's that has.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Plant.
Right.
This is Karen. Chuck, I had a question that came up when when Stacy went into the edit mode for, say you upload something from your mobile device. How long is it before it gets sent to the verifier? So if you've got to go in and do some edits, you don't want it to go yet. How does that work?
Yeah, it goes instantly to the verifier as soon as you submit it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good to know if you're going to add more info.
Right. And one thing we can do is, and we've done this in some cases, and we have not done it for iPain specifically, but we can make it where it sends the verifiers a note when a record has been updated as well as a new record.
Oh yeah, that'd probably be good.
Okay.
And another question was, if I check the private box for location, it only shows up at the county level to other users, but I can see the point I placed. Well, No, at this point you cannot see the points you placed. It's hidden. The verifiers would be able to see that point, though. If that answers your question, Don. Don't want the lat long to show to anybody. The best thing to do is not include it with the record and just enter it at the county level.
Yeah.
And then did you I missed a couple. Did you go over the alert system?
I did.
Okay, good. Yeah, sorry, I was gone for a little bit. Any other questions from anybody?
There's another question. Is there any collaboration with other invasive species mapping systems, IMAP, vital signs, etc.?
Well, I believe vital signs goes into EdMaps as well.
Yes, it does.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's done on kind of a semi-regular basis. It's not instant, but it does go in. And the data from IMAP, is not freely shared at this point with anybody else. We've been trying to fix that for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a group working on that.
But for example, Texas has their own mapping system that's Texas specific, but all the data from Texas is routinely uploaded into EdMaps, so it can be part of the national map. And there's a lot of other groups similar that we do similar sharing with.
So they're not actually, nodes like iPaint is for EdMaps in New England. It's a whole separate system.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and Cynthia says, somebody told me that for early detection species, there are a lot of points in one area, even though only one infestation. Does this mean each reporter has a point, or could it be someone did a detailed inventory with a lot of points, making it look like there are a lot of infestations?
Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose, yeah, I mean, if they went in and took a bunch of, like, didn't do a centroid, but kind of were doing, individual plants, then it might look, more extensive, I guess, than it is, possibly.
Yeah, and the other question was, how do you edit redundant entries, different folks entering the same site and plant without realizing it? And currently, from a technical side, there's not a way to do that. I don't know that it's been a problem. Maybe there's a few examples where it has been, but sometimes it's good to have those multiple points in a close location, because it's usually, especially if they took pictures, then the likelihood is that it's not the same exact day that they were all out there, and so different people may have gotten a different shot of it or a different picture of it. And Logan said for that situation, the gross area versus infested area would provide the details needed, and that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, another question on any guidance on what makes photos most useful.
Um, I mean, from my perspective, I mean, if I, being a botanist, I mean, having good photos of, if you have reproductive flowers, fruits, things like that, that's very helpful. Good, clear pictures of the leaves. And then those infestation photos or the kind of overall habit photo of the whole plant can also be useful for someone verifying. And then for the kind of from the management sort of perspective, those overall habitat shots are good from the sense that we get a better idea of what this infestation looks like. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Karen, or not.
Yeah, I mean, there obviously that are some species going to be not as clear in photos. So if say it's stilt grass, and which looks like another one, any notes that you can add to that, I think are helpful, like why it's stilt grass.
Yeah.
For things that aren't going to be obvious through a photograph. Or sometimes the plants are so small that they're really in the landscape shot. They're going to be hidden by other plants. So do a little description of what you're seeing.
Yeah, in that caption area there is kind of helpful.
And Logan
right,
said at one point there was an iPaint guide dealing with which plants to photograph, that should still be on the website somewhere.
Yeah, because that way like for say if you have like a, if you really want to like a honeysuckle down to species, that would be one that I know you need flowers for, and I think iPaint has a guide to those plants, or if it's microstegium, like what the feature is that would distinguish it, like Karen was saying, that you might want to get a picture of that distinguishing feature that's in the description, basically.
And Cynthia said highlight identification characteristics. And then we had a question about, does EdMaps only track animals in Florida, no insects, inverts in other states?
No.
And I'll answer that quickly. We're primarily doing animal, quote-unquote, tracking in Florida, which is really more like wildlife tracking. We're starting to look at doing that in some other states as well, as the need has kind of come up. Using the OutSmart app and some of the other apps, you can now report some of the insect and disease species through EdMaps, but we're not really focused on mapping those. We're more focused on getting those to the proper regulatory folks so an action can be taken on them. A lot of cases, there's other programs out there that are already mapping some of those species. Then the other question, in determining the extent of a population, how do you draw the line if the plant is present across much of a very large landscape area?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it was me, if I was out in a large infestation, I would probably take a point if the habitat changes, or it might be one huge infestation, say of Japanese barberry, but maybe there's some in the woodland and then there's some in an old field that's adjacent to the woodland. So I might maybe make those habitat distinctions.
Because that's really important for modeling.
Yes. And like even from a management perspective, like you might be more if there's like a plant in a nice natural area compared to like a early successional, not high priority area, that might be important to the manager to know, oh, I really better get out and deal with that one in that nice high priority area over the one that's in kind of like a vacant lot or something like that.
And again, you can always put it in the notes, like really this is I can't even tell how big this is, but it's well beyond X acres or something.
Yes. Yeah.
And somebody asked about polygons, and right now EdMaps from the web interface just allows you to enter points. We have looked into changing that, but we get complaints about the form being too detailed and asking too many questions already, and so part of the reason why we haven't really focused on making the polygon functionality available. Another question is, are there teams in each New England state set to respond when a new species of concern is located?
Yeah, well, it's hard with that, most of you being muted because other states might be able to respond. But, we've definitely been struggling in Massachusetts with this. There are, Heritage has taken on a number of sites and Department of Ag, but this is definitely a challenge going forward. I think, each individual case will be somewhat different in terms of, what the species is, how much of an early detection species, where it's actually located, whether on state land or private land. I think that right now the response is varying, but the Massachusetts Invasive Plant Advisory Group is working on this, and obviously funding is a challenge for this as well. So we'll have to stay tuned on that from the Massachusetts perspective.
And the goal has been to make sure that the correct people in each state get it. So if there is,
right,
funding in place to have some sort of action to go along with it, then it can be done.
Right, and just a lot of us have alerts set, so we at least will know stuff that comes in that are looking at things statewide.
Logan said Connecticut is interested particularly in receiving reports of high priority invasives. Logan and Stacy get those reports for Connecticut. The high priority list is on the Connecticut Invasive Plant Working Group website and is being updated this season. Another question was, if polygons are a problem, would it be possible to upload a map as a PDF or JPEG if someone has mapped the boundaries on an ortho and topo map? And the answer is yeah, you can include that as one of the photos that's uploaded.
Mm-hmm.
And from a technical perspective, again, a lot of our focus over the past 6 months is getting these apps and getting the apps working and usable by folks in the field. And we're now going back to some of the interfaces in the web form and trying to improve it and make it work better. And I think, possibly adding polygons or, encouraging people to upload a JPEG of a polygon would be obviously on our list of things to do.
Yeah, hopefully we can maintain enough funding, and Chuck's been generous with his time and funding from other sources to keep editing going, over time, so there'll be continuous improvements over time, both on the iPain website,
Mm-hmm.
the ed maps behind the scenes, and how we do things in Massachusetts and probably other states as well. We're operating on a shoestring at the moment.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Just an excellent review. Thanks very much. Are there different user levels, basic, advanced, admin?
Mm.
It's not really that simple.
Yeah, I was like...
Yeah, I mean, they're really users, and then there are the verifiers, and then, the project sort of administrators have some access to information a little bit differently in some cases, but there's not really a strong hierarchy of different user types. There's one thing that that Stacy did not show is there's an advanced query tool now. I don't think you showed anyway.
No, I didn't. No.
That lets you go in and pull out data by a lot of different attributes, and that was something that you kind of had to be a more advanced user to be able to get access to, like all the reports for iPain specifically. And now anybody can do it, and it generates a map as well as a spreadsheet.
Well, we're getting towards the end of our time, but we've got the 2 emails there if you have further questions, and if we can't answer them, we can forward them along to Chuck. But thank you all for participating, and I hope that you'll get out and start entering data this growing season so we can improve the amount of data going into the system.
And one last question was, do we have funding for long-term maintenance? And the answer is yes. The university is committed to making sure that the infrastructure behind EdMaps, which is hosting iPain, is going to stay around for the long term. That was part of the reason why iPain was moved to EdMaps. So the focus could be looking for funding for the for education and outreach, not funding for the background system.
Yeah.
And that's the University of Georgia.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. As opposed to the University of Connecticut, where iPain is headquartered.
And then they're looking, continuing ed credit for attending the webinar. I think I've done that in the past. So email Stacy or Karen, and I think I've got a certificate that I could send you to show that you were participating for the hour.
And we did record this, so it will be available. Maybe Stacy, there'll be a way to put it up on the iPain site at some point too. Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thanks.